Hello everybody and welcome to the Home Night Vlogs. I'm so glad that you're here and I want to take a minute to introduce you to my lovely friend Jody.
Hello.
Everybody say hello. Take a moment to say hello to your screen. Right. Jody, my friend, she is a psychologist and has done a lot of stuff in that realm with Jacaranda for a long time, and I've known Jody for a long time, and she is here to talk to us about boundaries, which is so cool. But before we get stuck into that, I kind of wanted to ask her a few questions that are really important just so that you could know Jody better, so you know where she's coming from, okay? Now I've written the questions down, so I'm going to refer to my telephone if that's okay with you, Jody.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so what is it that you're currently binging on Netflix at the moment?
Well, I've just started watching Self-Made.
Oh, what's that?
Yeah, it's quite good. It's about an African-American woman who, back in the 1920s, started her own hair growth product. Look, she's amazing.
Oh,
a real
wow.
woman power kind of movie. Yeah, she's great. She's been in a lot of movies, and I really enjoy her acting. So that's been good. And I also just stopped watching Unorthodox. Amazing.
What's that?
Oh, you just got to watch that. That's
Gotta watch that. See, this is like really good stuff. I was like, I've been binging Dead to Me. Like, shivers, man. That's good. That's very good. I also have been watching Community. Okay, so my next question for you is, what is the most embarrassing thing you've ever worn?
Most embarrassing thing.
Come on.
Look, to be honest, hands down, has to be a hairstyle.
Come on. What does it look like?
Yeah, 80s. Back to the 80s. It was awesome. Spike at the top, shave on the side, long at the back. It was classic.
Shave on the side?
I can't believe what was I thinking.
Oh my gosh! That's so
Super
special.
special.
I did not know that. I've known Jody for a long time. I cannot picture the
Oh,
side
it's
of
so
this photo.
special. You know, you will not ever be seen.
I love that. Okay, and my last question to you before we crack in is, what is one thing that nobody looks cool while doing?
Yes, sporting that hairstyle.
Did you think it was cool at the time?
I was like rocking it, mate.
No regrets?
What, so many years later? No.
Oh man.
It was tragic.
Well, thank you for giving us an insight into who you are, James. That's sensational and
Oh,
special,
good.
I
Yeah,
say.
that's good.
But I guess what we want to talk about today is boundaries. Like a little bit about why do we need boundaries, a little bit about what even does that mean? Because obviously it's like if you've ever sort of talked about anything in self-care and all that kind of thing, buzzwords are like mindfulness, boundaries, and it's like all very good to say that sort of stuff, but what does that even mean? What does it even mean? So can I throw it to you and you just give us some insight?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, I think boundaries are very important. There's some complexity to it though, so I suppose it gets a bit confusing.
Yes.
But it's basically about when to say yes and when to say no, to put it very simply.
Yeah.
But I thought what I would do today, if it's okay, to use the whiteboard,
Yes.
because I love pictures, I'm
Come
very
on.
visual.
Let's do it.
I think that this would be really helpful. So what I want you to think about is that you're trying to grow a beautiful garden, all right? And you've got these really special flowers, and they're gorgeous, and you've taken a long time to try to grow them, yeah. So that's my beautiful pictures of flowers.
They're beautiful, Judy.
They are gorgeous. But you've got this neighbour, right? And he owns, or she, a sheep. Love my drawing of a sheep.
It's a beautiful drawing.
It is a drawing, yeah. So I want you to think about this. This sheep, right, is super annoying because the only thing it wants to eat are your beautiful flowers. All right? Not okay. So every now and then the sheep comes along and eats your flowers. Very distressing, very upsetting. You have to start growing them again. So what do you do to stop the sheep from coming into your garden? Something really simple. What do you do? Any ideas, Chrissy?
I don't know, like, shoo it away. Go away, sheep!
You could do that, but what happens when you go to sleep? So when you go to
Good
sleep,
point.
the sheep might still come, right? So I don't know if shooing away is going to work. It might be another option. So you've got a flower, you've got garden, you may want to protect it. There's something else that you could do. Any ideas?
Fence.
Gold star.
Oh, yes, come on!
So we put a fence.
Do I get a stick up at the end of this?
I think you do. Yes. But look, that's all good and well, your flowers are protected. But we know to grow anything, we have to water it. You have to put sometimes manure or fertilizer on it. So you have to be able to access the flowers. How do you do that? There's a fence around it. I can't get in. What do I need?
Well, a gate.
A gate.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. There's something really important about this gate, and that is only one person gets to kind of control the gate. And that's the owner of the property. So I want you to think about this. This is your garden, right? And boundaries are just like a property line. So you are putting a fence around your property so that your neighbour can't just dump what they want on it. Or they can't just come and pull up your garden because they like the tree and they want to plant it in theirs, right? So most people who have property have a fence around it. Now our lives are exactly the same. We have a garden. Our garden is representative of our heart. So I'm going to put on here now, what are the things we want to have boundaries around? So they're things like, we want to have boundaries around our choices.
It's good.
Yeah, what we choose to do with our lives, for example, what day-to-day choices we have. We want to put boundaries around our values. Now, values are really important. Imagine at some point you probably explore values as well, but values are really important because that is what is important to me. How do I want to direct my own life? And I think when we know what our values are, we can determine our behaviour in response to those values. Our beliefs. What do I believe about something? What do I believe about life? So beliefs are really important. Our relationships are in our garden. Our behaviours. Yeah. So choices, values, beliefs, relationships, behaviours. There are a few others. Mental blank right now, but there's a few to give you a bit of an idea.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So what this means is everything inside my garden I am responsible for. Yeah. Everything on the other side I'm responsible to. Okay. So there's a difference between being responsible for and to. Okay, so what that means is I am responsible to my neighbour, i.e. to be respectful, to be assertive when needed, but to treat them with human decency, yeah? But I'm not responsible for their yard. I don't know if you've ever driven down the street and seen one yard not mowed at all and the next yard manicured, yeah?
Yes.
So each person is responsible for their yard. So I'm responsible for my choices, my values, my beliefs, my relationships and my behaviour, but I'm not responsible for my neighbours, but I'm responsible too. Does that make sense? So there is a difference there. And the reason this is really important is because if we don't have boundaries, people will make our choices for us. If we don't know what our own values are, then our life, we don't have what we call agency, which is that ability to direct my life in the way I feel like it needs to go. Our feelings. I knew there was a major one. I'm thinking there's a major one.
We've forgotten our feelings.
Oh, yes. Our feelings, and again, they're our responsibility. And remember, feelings are our indicators. They tell us when something's not quite okay. So we want our feelings to indicate but not dictate. Does that make sense? So we want them to indicate when a boundary is violated. So if somebody crosses my line and says, oh, well, you shouldn't think that way, or that's a dumb choice, or I can't believe you're going to do that. What do you mean you believe that? That's somebody stepping over my boundary and not respecting me. My feelings should indicate my boundary is being violated. All right? So I might then have an anxious response, or I might have an angry response. Yeah? That's my feelings indicating. Now, we don't want them to dictate, because then I might behave not respectfully, but I still might want to assert myself. Yeah? So that's why we need boundaries, so that we can grow the garden we want. Do we want my lawns to be manicured? Do I want a beautiful flower in the corner? What do I want my life to look like? So to put that practically, what relationships do I want in my life? Actually, who do I not want in my life? That's my choice. That's who I let into the yard. What behaviour am I okay with? Do I need to have boundaries with myself around those things? So as you can see, if I want my life to look like I want it, boundaries are really, really important. And I need to understand what my responsibility is and what my responsibility is not. And I think that's really, really important. There's one other aspect to this, though, that is quite important. And that is, for some people, their boundaries are so thick and they have their little flowers, but there's no way for anybody to get in. And that's as dangerous sometimes as having no boundaries whatsoever, because then the garden can't get nutrients or influence, and that's also not healthy. So we really want good boundaries that have some flexibility to let in those that we want to let in good things, but to keep out things that are not good. And so that's why boundaries are really quite important, but we don't want them so rigid that we don't have permission to say yes sometimes. We want to always be able to have permission to say yes and no. And that's what we want, that agency and that flexibility to say yes and no. So that's a bit of a breakdown of what boundaries look like.
That's really, really good. I think when you look at, you said stuff like the ability to say no to people and the ability to say yes to people was within boundaries and things like that. What is a healthy way to say no to somebody, though? That's a tricky thing to do. I think that's something that I go, sometimes it's just easier to let people say, do whatever, and I'll just say yes, just avoid a fight or whatever like that. What happens when I don't do that? I just asked you two questions.
Yeah,
so I'm going to break that down. What
okay.
happens when I don't do that, and then how do I actually say no? How do I actually do that kind of thing?
Yeah. And look, I understand this is actually quite complex. It's not easy.
Yes.
I think the first thing we need to do is firstly be aware of my own desires. Like, spend some time understanding what kind of garden I want.
That's great. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
spend some time thinking, okay, what do I believe about things? What do I think about things?
Yeah.
What are my values? Doing some work on values. Because when I know what my values are, particularly, then I can direct my behaviour in line with that.
Yep.
So I think firstly do a bit of work on understanding your garden. What do you want my garden to look like?
Yep.
What do I actually believe is true?
Yes.
What is really important to me. I think when I know that, then I can navigate a little easier around what to say yes to and what to say no to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because if it's in line with my values, then I'll know that.
Yeah.
I always say respect to, not for,
Yeah.
because, and that's dependent on whether that is your value, but I'm saying that for humanity to coexist, there is a mutual respect that's beneficial. Yeah,
Definitely.
and there is a sense of being able to compromise and be flexible in that. But if I am always saying yes and never saying no, I will get resentful because my yard will constantly be dumped on and my needs will never be met. Yeah, actually that's a big one up there. I just forgot. Is needs.
Write it in.
Write it in.
Jane,
Sorry,
there's still time.
There was a few that I forgot.
There's still time.
You know how it bugs you in your head. You go,
No, I know.
Needs.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. What do I need? But
Yeah.
if I never even mindful of what my needs are, which is I'm exhausted, I've had a big week, someone's asked me to go out again. I just want to say no, but I feel like I don't want to disappoint them or upset them. Then that means my needs are never met.
That's good.
Where I can really gracefully say, I love you, I'd love to go out, but could we do it next week?
Yeah. That's a much nicer way of putting it. I recently had an experience, one of my friends asked me, do you want to go out and have a games night? And usually I love that kind of thing, but I was a little less nice about it. I'm like, no, I do not. No, I do not. I mean, do you have something else on, Chris? No, I do not. I've got a date with my lounge and my Netflix. That's what I said. But yeah, you're right. It's sort of like to know what it is that I needed. I needed to know that before it is that I could actually easily or confidently say no.
Exactly. Yeah. And so part of that is getting to know yourself, getting to know your indicators, which are your emotional responses to things. Not to be led by them, but for them to indicate. It tells me, okay, I'm at capacity, I need some space, I need to say no. Or I really don't feel like that food.
Right.
You know, I don't want to eat Thai again.
No.
But I don't
Seriously.
think I can say no.
Yeah.
And then I'll eat it begrudgingly because
Yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah.
Actually, that's my responsibility. It's not the other person's responsibility. They're happy saying, I want Thai.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
part of this is developing
Mm.
that. But look, obviously there's assertiveness and how to use assertive
course.
language. And I'm not sure if you want that in this space, but that's, you know, really using empathy first where possible, which is, you know, I really understand you like Thai, but would it be okay that today we tried burgers?
Yes.
For example.
For the love of burgers, people. No,
Exactly.
and I think that that's really important to note is that when you assert your boundaries and when you sort of say, hey, look, I would rather this, it's not actually necessarily saying to the other person that they don't matter or anything like that. What it is that happens sometimes is sometimes they actually don't mind either way, and they're just waiting to act. When you say what it is that you want, what it does is it enriches your relationship,
Yeah.
because they then get an insight to you that they wouldn't have had except you said it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, sometimes they don't even know that they want burgers until you say, shall we?
Burgers.
Yes.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Let's enrich these relationships.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I understand. And by the way, one of my favourite things about what you said was thinking about what kind of a garden you want, because I think sometimes you say these lovely flowers and things like that. For me, I'm not a lovely flower kind of person, but I'm like thinking about what my flowers would be, and they'd be like these cool little plant things that have all these shards and colours and all that kind of thing. I want some water features. I want to have like this massive waterfall in my garden and everything like that. But if I don't actually look after my waterfall and my cool weird jagged things, if I don't do that either, it's the same concept. And so knowing what kind of garden I want, so important.
Yeah. And so that's, you know, for some people, putting it really practically.
Yes.
Like if for you, what enriches you, and if you think about deposits, withdrawals, if you take money out of a bank and never put deposits,
Yes.
we go bankrupt, right?
Correct.
So knowing what nourishes your garden. So for some people, that is a bit of quiet time on the couch.
Yes.
Going for an ocean swim for some
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
or a walk. They're deposits, right? Sometimes having a coffee with a close friend. Knowing what your deposits are, go, okay, I haven't had that, so I now need to create space. Now, someone wants to use that space. Do I now give in to them and not get that deposit, burn out and get resentful? Or do I take responsibility and say, you know what, I would have loved to, but I need to enrich my garden right now. Now, you don't know what to say. I want to enrich my garden right now.
Yes. I'll enrich my garden.
Right now, yeah.
No.
But you may want to say, look, you know what, I really had some plans that I really needed to get done that I need to, can we postpone? So again, you're prioritising your garden, you're understanding the need for a deposit.
Yes.
And if we don't do that, we do lead to burnout, suppression of emotion, leads to depression.
Yes.
We know that. It's anger turned inward. So we don't want that space. That's when it's an arid garden.
Yes.
And we're responsible for the garden.
Did you say an arid garden?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, it's dead.
A dead garden. Okay, cool.
Sorry.
No,
Dead
don't
garden.
apologise. I've learned
Dead-
something new today. Yes.
Dead garden.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
Yeah.
We are responsible to tend it, so
Yeah.
we are responsible to say no.
Yes.
And to make sure the deposits happen.
Yes, but then you shifted gears, and the other thing that I loved was the whole saying yes to things. If you've got a thick boundary wall thing, like
Rigid, we call it rigid?
rigid,
Yeah.
then it's not good either. And so it's sort of like not saying yes to things. How does that wreck my garden?
Yeah. Well, some people's experience may be that in their relationships, no one's ever really provided for their needs, so they've had to be severely independent.
Yes.
And they can develop what we call a rigid boundary, which is so self-sufficient that they have to tend to everything themselves, which is almost impossible. We're made to be in community. We're made to rely and be interdependent on one another. And so when your boundary's too rigid and you're solely relying on yourself, the nutrients that your garden may need, you don't have access to. So you find yourself saying no to everything. And that's also as unhealthy of having no boundaries. So flexing that muscle to take a bit of a risk on safe people. Who are the safe people in my life right now?
So what you're saying though is if I don't actually let people in, you said before something, I lose perspective and I miss out on other people's ideas and things like that. That's what it is that I'll miss if I say no to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also we don't grow.
Yeah.
We can become very narrow and inflexible. And life needs us to be flexible. We need to be able to grow
yes,
with
it does.
Because look at COVID, right?
Yes.
We need to know how to flex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So then, okay, if this is our boundaries, we know we've got two different kinds of boundaries and everything. If we were to set a challenge to all those out there watching this, what do you reckon? What's a challenge that we could achievably actually do? No matter who you are, no matter what situation you're in life, what could anyone do?
For sure. So I recommend that if you're the top garden, i.e. you used to be compliant, just doing what other people want whenever, and you find it hard to say no, I think my challenge would be to think about safe relationships in your life that you could practice on. And really small things. So the practice may be, I've talked about food. I think it's a really good one because it's non-threatening, but it may be, instead of always going, oh, what do you want to eat? Okay, yeah, that's fine, and going along with it, practice actually having a view on it. Practice going, actually, you know what, would it be okay? So that could be around outings, food, times you meet, anything, but I would choose a safe person to do that with, so someone you've recognised could probably take it, or you've observed in themselves are quite good in their own boundaries. And then for those who find that they are severely independent and really a little bit closed off to saying yes, my encouragement to you would be, if someone does invite you, or there is kind of an invitation to say yes, or to reach out to a safe person and say, you know, oh, would you like to go and have a coffee? So I know that's a risk and I know that's a stretch, but just try to do it with safe people first. And that's like building a muscle that hasn't been used. You've got to start with low weights. So we start with low weights and we build up to, obviously there's major boundary violators sometimes in our life that we have to build up to. And sometimes we need extra resources and extra support to be able to do the bigger ones. So start with the smaller ones first.
That's awesome. So what you're saying is, for those who find that they're a bit more, you know, compliant and able to go with the flow a bit, we want you to kind of know yourself a little bit and stretch your muscle to say, I would like to do this, rather than going along with what other people say. So do it once this week. And the other is, when you kind of feel that you don't say yes to a lot of things, to say yes to an invitation to anything, even if it's, you know, going somewhere, having a conversation, a piece of advice, anything. You know, sort of saying,
with a safe person.
Yes, with a safe person. Both of these. Don't do it to randos on the street. That's weird. You don't know them. Creepy. Don't do that. But yeah, okay. So I feel like that's two challenges we can do. We can totally do that.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Is there anything else you feel like we need to know about boundaries before we close this up?
I think only Brene Brown said, most boundary people are the most loving people, which might sound weird, but it is true, because when we are boundaried, we're not resentful. So boundaries promote love and connectivity, and people feel safe. So the more boundaried, the more safer.
That's a beautiful way of looking at it. I'm so glad that you said that, actually, because I think sometimes when you're saying no to people, you feel like I'm like being mean to them, or I'm not caring about them, or something like that. But you're right. It is being loving to actually, you know, have boundaries. And know what you want, and, you know, stand for them.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So thank you, Jodie, for coming.
Always
thank you for
pleasure.
sharing with us. I feel enlightened, and I've learned some things, like a lot of things.
Awesome.
So I really appreciate that.
Pleasure.
So we're going to say good night, goodbye, and keep your fluids up, guys.